My takeaway this episode is probably the shortest takeaway yet. I think it is good that Fort Daxio is under attack. It's an explicit reminder that they can't just ignore Thordak for a day. He's not going to just sit in Iman until they're ready to fight him. Now that they have killed Vorugal, this is an active conflict, and they are going to have to make decisions about how they spend their limited time. That is how you pressure a high-level party, a very powerful party. Vox Machina is incredibly powerful, but they can't be everywhere at once. They either need to split up and weaken themselves or make a decision. It's the classic Batman, Spider-Man, a lot of superhero movies. The superhero is almost always more powerful than the villain. They will defeat them in a head-to-head fight, so the villain makes them split their attention, save the city or save the girl, because they will succeed at whichever one they choose, so the villain makes them choose. And I think that it is very, very good to, at least in a small way, remind Vox Machina of that. And that's it. Very short takeaway, I think. I like it. I didn't want to talk too much about the Ashley stuff, because I think I've sort of talked it to death. And I don't think there's a lot of actual advice for a home game. Broadly, I really like the split attention. Save Rachel or save Harvey. Because the heroes are going to win. And we need them to win in a satisfying but challenging story. The threat of defeat should always be looming, especially in a game setting like D&D. And it's always possible, depending on the decisions they make. When you have a villain that the party has prepared for so long to fight, their preparation plus their natural power should lend towards a not easy but satisfying victory that keeps in mind all of the prep that they have done. But if you want to have that while simultaneously pressuring them and stressing them out and making the villain seem still very effective, even if they're less powerful, you got to split the hero's time. And you have to use the fact that they care about things, theoretically, that the villain doesn't. Works better on a more moral party. Depending on how strong the wyverns are, this could be... It also depends on how many there are, because I think we just got the estimate of 100. They could approach this. This could be similar to the Tide of Bone in Whitestone, where, you know, Matt just had 100 little gribbly skeletons that are easy to take out with big OE spells. That's not the vibe I'm getting currently. I'm getting the impression that the Wyvern Riders are going to be stronger than that, especially given that they encountered some Wyvern Riders in Mon, like right after the fall of Amon. They didn't seem like pushovers at that point, but I guess there's some back justifying you could do on, oh, those were elites or something like that. It's also very possible that they just need to charge in if they're going to have any impact. There doesn't necessarily need to be a success state here, right? This entire situation is a consequence for them ignoring Thordak for a day. This is a consequence for them fucking off to another plane of existence. If there's no easy major impact, that can just be okay. I don't know if that's necessarily smart with this party in particular, because I cannot see a universe in which they are encouraged to run away, or which they actually do run away, especially when faced with not ostensibly super scary enemies. But I think it's definitely an option for parties where they're either used to more deadly combats, they're used to being presented with things that they need to run away from. I don't think Vox Machina is super used to that, so I don't foresee it working on them. But if there really is no obvious way to affect the battle, that could be extra effective against a party who is used to being presented with things in that range, because it could really hit home. You have to watch this unfold. You are only 6 people. This is on the scale of armies. You cannot affect this. That could be a very nice moment of helplessness, especially leading into the larger context of this conflict with Thordak, but only if they don't suicide rush it. Only if they take that helplessness in stride, which, helplessness has been forced upon Vox Machina in the past, most notably with the fall of Amon. But it's not something that they're overly used to. Ashley's not there, so now they can rush in blindly, obviously. Ashley will pick up the rest of the mission on her own. The easiest way for the DM to explain how outnumbered the party is just to ask D20s. Can I borrow some extra dice? I just need to roll a couple of things real quick. Just hear all the clatter behind the screen.
Go ahead and take a shot.
I'm taking my first shot. I'm also making it a wing shot.
I Hunter's marked them as soon as they were close enough.
Yes, Hunter's marked. There's 2, and a third one has joined a little bit behind now, and they're coming upon you.
Jesus.
So which one are you?
I'm the biggest.
Hard to gauge at this distance.
The one that's closest.
First one.
I am a 3rd level
30.
rogue now.
Third. Okay.
All right.
So I get advantage on my attack if they haven't attacked me yet, right? I haven't taken a turn.
I believe, looking at the specifics.
Assassin at
Right.
a 3rd level.
So you just got your
You get
rogue.
advantage if you get the drop if they haven't taken a turn yet.
Technically,
They're moving.
No, you're
they're
around.
moving.
They've been dashing towards you. You do not have the drop on them as they've been making a beeline since the beginning.
All right. I guess I'll just have a 32 attack then.
Okay.
That's why I wouldn't not recommend Assassin if a player was super psyched about it. But Assassin is one of those abilities that interacts a little strangely with the natural flow of gameplay. It's very clear. It's like, okay, they're surprised they haven't acted yet, but other times you're trying to read it by the book and it doesn't fully mesh with the feel of the character. They worded it that way so that Assassin could be more consistently useful, but it also made it slightly confusing. I wasn't charged by a different ability to assassinate. Mentioned Assassin in 3rd level, so I'm almost positive she was meaning assassinate. I think she was referring to assassinate. I feel like you should have given it to her. I think it's debatable. I think that Matt is leaning more on the feel of assassin. Maybe not even necessarily rules as intended, but he's leaning more towards the feel of like how assassin, the thematics of assassin, as opposed to the book mechanics. It's not like Matt has a history of being loose with when combat starts. Yeah, he's not loose with that at all. You have attack rolls on any creature that hasn't taken a turn in the combat yet. The part that I think is weird about that, and I think the part that Matt is essentially saying, just because we're not in initiative doesn't mean the combat hasn't started. They're rushing towards you. I'm just not forcing you to go turn by turn yet. That's essentially his argument. And I think it's fair. And it's one of the weaknesses of how Assassin is worded. Sometimes the start of a combat is super obvious. Other times it's not as clear. You know what I'm saying? Especially the second part of that with the surprise is also not so clear on when things are surprised and when they aren't. That's all up to DM fiat. So I think that's one of the things that I don't think that assassin and assassinate is written unclearly, but it is embedded within 2 things that aren't always so clear. Which is why I would have a tough time recommending it over things like Thief or Arcane Trickster or Swashbuckler or the Psionic Rogue from Tasha's, which is super cool. I think the Assassin Rogue is fine, but it is more open to those sorts of arguments than some of the other subclasses are. They're not technically in initiative, is the problem, but they're kind of in the initiative. We know that D&D mechanics don't always reflect reality. That's essentially what Matt is arguing here. He's cherry-picking this time to play realism at the expense of her class ability. I think cherry-picking is a fine way to put it, but it's also like a bit uncharitable. Not that I necessarily, not that you need to be super charitable to Matt. He's doing fine. But I think all DMs go back and forth on picking when and how to be more strict on realism. Every DM has to draw that line for themselves. He lets other things go. Every DM cherry picks sometimes to play realism and sometimes to not. The reason I'm saying that, like, I think it's a bit ungenerous is because, like, that's just like a thing that DMs have to do. And I think cherry picking has a more negative connotation when the game is not real. Unless I'm going to have the enemy surrender immediately or do something, the first aggressive action means combat is starting. Yeah, and I mean, I've talked about how I would prefer for Matt to jump into initiative sooner. Like, I think we should already be in initiative. And then a feature like this makes a little bit more sense. I'm being intentional about the use of cherry picking as a term. Yeah, I know you are. But that's a line that every DM has to draw to some degree. I'm definitely more generous in terms of class abilities. I want my players to be able to use their class. So I would probably come down on the side of letting her use it here. But again, I think there are so many cool rogue classes that really lean into their own flavor. I think Phantom is super cool. A little bit clunky occasionally. I think Soul Knife is cool. Arcane Trickster and Thief, I think, are both more consistently interesting than Assassin. But Assassin is the big numbers subclass, so I get it. Is Thief good, or am I just not creative with fast hands? Probably that. I'm going to be real honest with you. My favorite new build in 2024 is using scrolls for extra true strike attacks like the old crossbow expert feat. It is cheesy. Thief is really great if you're creative with fast hands. I think fast hands is maybe one of the most... I'm trying to think of a similar one. I think fast hands, in terms of class features, is similar to Minor Illusion. Minor Illusion, just like on its face, kind of doesn't do anything. It has no mechanical impact. It's very limited. But if you're creative with Minor Illusion, it can be one of the most powerful cantrips in the game. And like without that much DM fiat, you just have to be creative with it. I think fast hands is really similar, especially if you're looking into some of the equipment given in the book. I also think the fact that you get a climbing speed, regardless of your species, is good if your DM is good at making battle arenas and you're fighting with varying levels of verticality. The climbing speed is awesome. The fact that Thief can bypass species and class and alignment requirements for magic items is super cool, I think. So I think Thief is a incredibly flexible subclass for someone who is very creative. If you don't want to think too much about your class features, like if you want your class to just work and be creative in other avenues, like the roleplay segments, and you just want your features to work, I think that Arcane Trickster, Swashbuckler is great. The Psionic Rogue. Inquisitive and Mastermind are a little iffy. They're very flavorful, but they're not always going to be that useful. So the fact that the Mastermind can help at a distance runs into a really not quite the same problem, but a similar problem to Assassinate, where it's a cool mechanical ability, but it is kind of weird to narrate in fiction of how does a Mastermind Rogue do the help action at 30 feet. I think you run into really consistently, like, they distract the enemy. And that's kind of just how it falls down to, I think, pretty consistently, which I don't love. I think that runs into weird boringness in the flavorful description. Whereas I think so many of the other classes have really consistent, fun flavoring. I think the Swashbuckler is great in terms of flavor and strength. That's funny. In BG3, they replaced the more creative 5e feature with a feature that just works, and it works to a disgusting degree in BG3. 2 bonus actions is crazy. That didn't end too well. Doesn't help that Assassinate is one of the hardest subclasses to run because the requirements to use the ability is so niche. Yeah. And again, I think it runs into this issue of like when a combat starts is theoretically up to the DM. I think you run into an issue of it's a feature that is entirely based on DM fiat of like, when does the combat start? Are they surprised? It's very powerful when it does work, but it kind of requires the DM to, in the moment, litigate some things, which isn't necessarily what you want. Illusion magic in general is the most open to interpretation and DM ruling, which can make it be the worst or best. True. The rogue is the second subclass feature is so late. Yeah. You have to make the third level feature really, which is why, like, because I believe Arcane Trickster gets Mage Hand Ledgermane at third level. Am I remembering that right? Arcane Trickster. I probably didn't need to look up D&D Beyond. Yeah, that's gonna get me so many dumb things. Wikidot. When do they get Mage Hand Ledgermane? Yeah, like this is why I would recommend Arcane Trickster, because Assassinate is going to require all this litigation. Mage Hand Ledgermane, it's tough because I think some people that like go martial classes are often going to be like hesitant to play a third caster. But I think that Arcane Trickster is one of the coolest third casters. It gives you its cool ability right out the gate. Like Mage Hand Ledgermane, immediately you understand how it works. It's so cool, and it opens up so many possibilities within roleplay, within combat roleplay. The fact that it allows you to use it to help, is that correct? Am I remembering? Oh, no, it doesn't. Maybe that's later. Oh, yeah, Versatile Trickster later. Either way, I think the use case is immediately clear on Mage Hand Ledgermane in a way that it's frankly not on the PHB subclasses. I would recommend Arcane Trickster every time. I think you're going to get the most consistently fun experience, especially if you're inexperienced. But playing Gish class is not everyone's cup of tea. In my experience, climbing is not great for a melee fighter because being on a wall doesn't help in combat, but it's good for range. It kind of depends on the combats that your DM is setting up. It can be good if you're filling a monk type role where you're running down distant ranged enemy. Climbing can be amazing for that, especially because of the cunning action. Rogues are one of the fastest classes in practical terms because of their cunning action dashing. So it can be good for melee classes, or for a melee rogue. There are plenty of ranged rogues out there. I play with Psionic Soul Knife Rogue and has a ton of fun, does so many useful things. I think that the Psionic Rogue is I think that it has a similar thing with Mage. Psionic, to me, like when I think of what a psychic class does, I think more of the Psionic Fighter from Tasha's. But if I strip away the flavor and just look at the mechanics, I think the mechanics are immediately intuitive. You immediately see the use case for a rogue. They're immediately... And I don't think the flavor's terrible on it. Like, it still makes sense as psionic abilities. It just doesn't feel like the psionic subclass to me. But it's super... How many magic items have alignment requirements through, like, 5? I mean, yeah, that's why I say... That's why I was a little hesitant on, like, they can ignore requirements. Because there's not as many requirements in 5th edition as there were in previous. They stripped away a lot of the requirements, but there are still a couple. Gonna come in with a hot take. Mage Hand isn't that useful. I think that's fair, especially without Mage Hand Ledgermane. It's only good for stealing or disarming traps, but some games do traps rarely, or stealing may not come up at all beyond gimmicks. I think it's also good for things that are physically separated from you, but within eyesight. So things like pulling levers through a barred grate. Retrieving, it's just good for anything where you are physically separated, but you can see it. That is something that, I don't want to say it's not intuitive for DMs, but I don't think it's as intuitive. I will slightly disagree. The fact that you can make the Mage Hand invisible, I think opens up so much for the Mage Hand itself. I think the moment you can make the Mage Hand invisible, its use cases really broaden out. Because so many of the things you would want to do with Mage Hand are social things. And without a visible Mage Hand, those are a lot harder. But I think an invisible Mage Hand, it's easier. And like stealing may not come up, but if you have a rogue, I think it's going to come up more often. Also, things like lockpicking at a range, at a distance. And you get spellcasting, which is also immediately more clearly useful than something like fast hands. A little bit less creativity needed to make spellcasting work. The first time you find yourself fighting in a forest, everyone's going to want to climb speed. And unless you're a strength-based rogue, you're probably not having a great athletics score. So the climbing speed in a forest is nothing to scoff at. I'll give you the levers thing. Maybe it's better for levels like 1 to 4 when you give players more challenges outside of combat. Yeah, I think so. And like by the time, like I think the spell casting gives you a lot of flexibility in a lot of situations. And I think that that's my thing with both the Thief and Arcane Trickster compared to the Assassin, is that the Assassin's ability is so niche and it is dependent on table tone in a way that I think the Thief and Arcane Trickster are not. Which is why I'm not going to ban it at my table. If one of my players wanted to play it, they came to me and they were like, yeah, I'm playing an Assassin Rogue. I probably don't even say shit. But if they're like, I want to play Rogue, what subclass should I play? Assassin's not making my top 5. Just because I think the other ones are a little bit more immediately useful.
You and Percy both roll damage on those attacks, as these are both guided at the same individual.
Okay. So, be my proper guys. I have not thought this through. Where are we? Come on, there we go.
21, and then that is awesome.
26 points of damage, and he has to make a strength save against becoming prone.
Do I get sneak attack on this?
No, you would not.
Okay, so just 21 damage with 4 lightning.
So, as you hear the explosion at the front of the muzzle of that news take off through the air, both impacting into each side of the wyvern, you watch one of its wings tears open, and it turns off its back and clutching onto its reins, flipping over the side as it corkscrews and slams into the ground about 150, 200 feet behind you, skidding across the dirt.
Oh, I did 200 damage.
Go for it.
An additional 3.
Effectively slammed and left behind in the dust right now. It's going to have to rush, get up and rush, try and catch up to you guys. The other two are swooping down now and have managed to get up.
Do I get 21?
Okay.
Can I extend my arm with my wand of fireball?
Yeah,
Where
actually.
you crit on a 19.
I know I
Is
really
that
need
a
that.
feat? 18 damage.
Okay. At this point, they're maybe 150 feet from you.
I don't crit on a 19 yet, do I?
No.
Drink 19.
I'm not sure what
Why
that
can't you be drinking
It
it?
has-
We love the bear more than you, Percy.
is. No. Oh, I know. 32 to hit. And the same
What's the DC?
I'm fucked with it.
I've written down your DC, man.
I know, I used to have... Oh, 19.
19.
There, I just couldn't see
There you
it.
go. As you guys both release your second arrow and you load it, then fire again, you watch as one of the wings actually breaks at the hinge and it folds under itself. The rider is, this time, it's holding on, is thrown and plummets the rest of the distance, hitting the ground with a very heavy against the stonework and scattering. The wyvern ends up slamming to the ground and skidding off into a big cloud of dust behind you. However, that is completely around. The last one does swoop down, and you're making the loudest noise. You've got the most action, so it's going to swoop in your direction, Percival. It's going to come on down. It's going to make 2 attacks on you. That's what it's going to be. It goes to snatch at you with its bite, and you duck out of the way. However, the stinger comes up from behind, and that
I will also say, this is something I haven't talked a lot about. Obviously, shit-talked what I call white room combats a lot. But I do think if you are in a situation where you want the combat to be quick, which I think it seems like Matt does, and it makes the most fictional sense to run it as a white room, like, you know, they're on a big open field outside of Fort Daxio. There's not a whole lot of terrain to introduce there. Running a white room in Theater of the Mind is going to be more broadly successful. Not worrying so much about the specific ranges, just have the players ask, can I hit him with this? Running it all in Theater of the Mind is going to be broadly more successful. Because the moment that you put it on a grid is when the might think that. I get that. Woo! Good combat. Good combat. It was a little bit... I was definitely questioning it towards the beginning. Not so much in quality, but like what exactly was going on here. But no, I think it turned out pretty solid. Definitely things that Matt doesn't normally do. Like, it felt like a relatively atypical combat for Matt, which was cool. I like seeing that variety. It was very cool. And gave them potentially a taste of what to kind of expect going back to Iman, especially given that I think the majority, or at least maybe this has or hasn't been narrated, but it seems like the majority of Thordak's army is like these lizardmen, wyvern riders sort of thing. And it gives us a sense that there are going to be people of power, like the elf. There are going to be collaborators on Thordak's side. There are going to be these fire giants. So giving them kind of a little microcosm of what they might face on a bigger scale in any sort of Amon battle, especially now that Thordaxio has been penetrated, you might say. 2 big combats in a row. Yeah. One definitely more pertinent than the other. Although I liked the Pit Fiends arena a lot. I liked everything that this combat accomplished, even if the arena was kind of boring. The adversary spread was nice. What it accomplished narratively was nice. So I think broadly, I think I liked the encounter. This encountered a little bit more, even though I liked that. Cool. Very cool. I'm very interested in exactly how fucked up is Thordaxio. I'm assuming pretty fucked up, but we'll have to see. I don't know. Definitely weakened the forces there. We'll see how exactly this affects Vox's thought process, because they got slapped for leaving, appropriately so. I am interested how that changes their thought process, because I think it'll change it in some way. I don't think that they will all just stand there and be like, nope, we did nothing wrong. I think that their thought process will change. It just depends on how. And if Matt wanted to discourage them, not saying he did, but if he had wanted to discourage the notion that Thordak is out to get them specifically, this did not accomplish that. I think this is definitely going to reinforce the opinion that Thordak wants their asses specific, but it is how do they exactly reckon with that? How do they go about planning and placing their allies? It's like he reinforced a certain part of their thought process. Thordak wants you, but he sort of butted up against this implicit assumption that they were making of, well, he'll wait for us. He'll wait for us to bait him here, or he won't know where we are. He sort of dispelled those implicit assumptions they were making while reinforcing that part of their thought process. I'm interested to see how Vox's thoughts are shaped by this event, because they'll be shaped in some way. If I had to guess, they'll lean more towards Keyleth's original ideas of spreading out their forces, putting them in multiple locations, that sort of thing. That's what I would guess will happen, but Vox has surprised me more than once, so who knows? Matt is not letting his Thordak dungeon be ignored. Hey, yes, sir. Yes, sir. He didn't even go as explicit with it as I would have. I would have had a monologue about their cowardice and craven sensibilities running from the great and powerful Cinder King. I would tell them that they need to show up at my front door. Matt didn't even go that extreme with it, so they could still try to bait Thordak out. But there is another interesting thing that this combat accomplished specifically in showing that Thordak is going to send people after them. He is going to kill a bunch of people, but he's not showing up himself. Thordak sent some lieutenants out, and I don't think, at least the impression that I got, is not that he will be so upset by their loss that he's going to come out himself. I would assume, if I was them, that he's probably got plenty more where that came from. And again, I'm glad that Thordaxio took some losses. They actually have some real consequence from that. And I think if they had been gone for longer, maybe they just show up and it's a flaming ruin. Maybe it's because they were only gone one day that they were even able to come back and kill them. I think they're going to that Thordak dungeon, or they have to really put their heads together about how to lure Thordak out. Other than I can't think of how they would lure Thordak out, truly. I mean, maybe they will. And that is the ultimate thing. It's like either they go to Amon, which this is encouraging them to do, or they have to really put their heads together on a reasonable way to lure Thordak out. Because clearly he's not coming out by default. With this many players, I would want clarity over interesting. Nice to have. Yeah, I agree. Vex winks at him. Thordak surrenders. Yeah. It was good. I think it was a narratively very appropriate combat. Honestly, wasn't even as harsh as I would have made it. That's fine. The pit fight was way harsher than I would have made it, so it balances out. I'm excited to see what comes next. Especially after this, I'm interested in seeing their thought process and what this pushes them to think. Because this is definitely dissuading them from certain courses of action, which is important to do as a DM. But you never quite know what's going to fill that void. Like, if you dissuade them from doing a certain thing, they're going to choose to do a different thing instead. And when you are dissuading and not actively encouraging some other course of action, you don't know what they're going to replace that with. And a lot of times, you can only do one at a time, unless you're really clever about it. It's often hard to encourage and dissuade at the same time. So I think it's appropriate he was focused on dissuading certain behaviors. But we'll see what Vox Machina replaces that with. But that said, I'm going to hit it. I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining. That was a good one. And I will see you all on Sunday. Maybe sooner. Probably just next Sunday. And with that, goodbye. I hate the end of stream.
It's worth about 750 gold.
Okay, I've obviously talked a fuckload about Matt's looting and looting sequences and taking things off of corpses. Sure, attach a gold value to it. If you extract things from a monster, I like the idea of you either get nothing or you get this thing that is like a consumable that you can use that burns like napalm. That's very fun. I don't like it when it is just gold in a trench coat. You know what I'm saying? If you're looting things off of people, I want them to be interesting. Should either be interesting, gold, a specific crafting ingredient they're already looking for, or, and I've never really thought about this until I just saw this, I also think a fourth option is something that is inherently useful. So like the dragon scales that they have, not inherently useful. But it's pretty easy to see how that could be a specific crafting ingredient. I'm cool with it. As opposed to this, which is just, like I said, instantly useful. I like that a lot. But for example, my players just fought troglodytes. Can I extract anything useful from the troglodytes? No. Troglodyte hide might be valuable in some circumstances, but it's not an obvious crafting ingredient. If I think through it, I might be able to do something, but it's not immediate. Dragon corpses have full shields and usable plate armor hiding in their armpits. I think monster parts are cool in conjunction with Xanathar's craft. I agree with that. Like, and that's what I say, like, monster parts that they are, like, searching for to craft. I don't require it necessarily, but I heavily encourage my players to have a formula and a list of what they want to craft before they are going to be able to even like harvest the necessary ingredients. Because like you can know generally how to skin, but especially for like monster biology, the idea of knowing how to harvest useful ingredients from like any given monster based on a check, frankly a little ridiculous. I think that's a little silly. I think it is, at least at the bare minimum, it makes more sense if they are going out in search of those ingredients already. So they have already had an idea of the ingredient that they're looking for, and I can bend and wiggle a little bit. They read a book on how to extract it. But otherwise, like, yeah, how are you going to know how to extract a troglodyte's fucking stench gland without having researched that ahead of time? I think even for something like the Ranger, that's a big stretch. Maybe for the Ranger, I'll at least give them the option of a check. But honestly, maybe only on their favorite enemies. Maybe that's actually a really good example of something that should be unlocked by favorite enemies. Like in fiction, their favorite enemy, they know how to extract all of the useful ingredients, use every part of the buffalo. Even for something that is not their favorite enemy, that they have not pre-looked into, that they just happen to run into over the course of adventuring. Again, something like dragon scales or Tarrasque horns. Something that is easily identifiable and not delicate to extract, that's fine. And something that I think would be obviously useful within a crafting recipe. Like, I think that any reasonable adventurer might, on the spot, theorize about how to use this in crafting. Dragon scales, chainmail, or scale mail, perfect. But again, something like a stench gland, it's delicate. The crafting implications are not obvious unless they have pre-researched it. Rangers and Druids, though Rangers need it more, both get this option in my games. My one player loves nature. People also love crafting. There we go. I think I could buy it for Rangers and Druids within the context of the animals or monsters they are familiar with. But yeah, broadly, I think just like I extract the ingredients, it's a little bit much for me. What do you think about dragons associated with harvesting monsters? Fugu preparation type of thing. I might need a little more explanation. I'm not fully understanding the question. Because they love crafting and it's their thing, it's also built into their character backstory. Okay, I can see that. It's like 50% of their character fantasy, so I gotta say yes. As I have talked about, there's always bending of my rules for my players. I want my players to have a good time. And there's something to be said for it can depend on the class. I would agree Rangers needed a lot more. There's a possible way to like turn it into a feat. I think there's a lot of ways to kind of flex around it. Dangers as in dangerous. Like the actual harvesting of the monster is dangerous. Like extracting a poison gland might poison you sort of thing. Oh, yeah, I don't mind it. I think crafting and extracting and harvesting are pretty low support in D&D. There's not a lot of rules built around it, and there's not a lot of necessity for rules built around it. Comparing it to something like the Monster Hunter games, where it's all about harvesting things and crafting things with those monster parts. D&D doesn't have a lot of mechanical support around that, and so I think it would be very table tone dependent. I think that if you're wanting to go for a more dangerous, gritty tone, that could work. There's danger lurking around every corner. Even attaining your rewards post-combat could be dangerous. I could see something there. If you're using third-party rules that add more mechanical support to things like harvesting and crafting, I think there's something to be said there. But broadly, if I'm just like going on like base 5e, I don't want to add too much complication to it because there is so little mechanical support there. I want to get through it and past it as quickly as well, maybe not as quickly as I can. I shouldn't say that. But with as little mechanical implications as possible. Which, like, me saying no to, like, can I harvest anything from that? No. That is going towards that goal. You know what I'm saying? If there was more mechanical support for things like harvesting and crafting, there's a little bit of mechanical support for crafting. And that's why I start it there and then go to harvesting. There's so little for harvesting that I want to boil it down to either yes, no, or one check. That's it. And that one check is like a yes or no. I don't do a gradient of success when it comes to harvesting monster ingredients. It's a very straightforward thing. Unless maybe if there's like multiple monsters. So if there's like 5 troglodytes, maybe I have some gradients of success there. But that's where I kind of land on it. I don't think that D&D is necessarily the system for that sort of fantasy. If that fantasy supports other things you're going for at your table and that D&D does support, broadly, I think that can be good. Or if it's really tied into one of your player fantasies. IMO harvesting and crafting doesn't engage narrative, so it's not appealing. Narrative in the moment. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly something to be said about it if that's something that your players are into. Like Daniel Grace's player, where crafting and harvesting are half of their class fantasy, I'm sure that they narratively engage. Or even if they don't, that's something they enjoy. I have a DM that I've played for that is like very into Monster Hunter, is always the crafter class, like was an artificer in D&D, like is always into that sort of stuff, and they really dive into the narrative of it. It's not there by default. I think you need some sort of exterior reason or interest. So my default answer is minimize it where possible. But if you have another reason to support it or maximize it, then I think you can go down it. Yeah. Anyways.
If you were to try and sell it.
Worth 7 of it.
It's very volatile, depending on how you store it.
Speaking of downsides to our fleeing and asked for shelter. Boke was let in on Allura's approval, and then they found her 10 minutes later. Was that what I just heard? We found her. Oh, yeah. And asked to speak to her alone. Something sensitive. They found her 10 minutes later. What year was this? 2017? When did Xanathar's come out? Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Because I might know what this is. 2017. Book by Wizards of the Coast. November 15th, 2017. When is this? Oh, this is January 2017. So Xanathar's hadn't come out yet. I don't know what this is then. Because this sounds a lot like a certain bard subclass. This sounds a lot like College of Whispers from Xanathar's. Am I crazy? Or is this from Tasha's? Oh, I wish it would tell you. Wait. Bard College of Whispers. Now I'm just curious. College of Whispers. What book was this published in? Okay, it wasn't Xanathar's. This sounds like Words of Terror. He asked to speak to her alone. You infuse innocent-seeming words with an insidious magic that can inspire terror. You speak to a humanoid alone for at least 1 minute. You can attempt to seed paranoia into its mind. At the end of the conversation, it makes a whiz save or is frightened of you or another creature of your choice. This target is frightened in this way for 1 hour, and then all this. Yeah. If the target succeeds on its saving throw, the target has no hint that you tried to frighten it. Super cool feature, by the way. At 3rd level, I think it's a fun feature, especially because it's paired with a combat upgrade. And one of the things I love about it is that it requires actually a pretty steep setup cost of you have to speak to them alone for a minute. But if you fail, it's very low risk because if they succeed the saving throw, they have no idea that you tried to frighten them, which I think is fun. That's what my mind immediately went to, Words of Terror. But I don't know what else it might be. It could always be a sort of soft magic, frightening or charming. He seemed like a relatively high caster, so it's always possible. There's a high-level enchantment spell. This just feels very enchantment coded. He could have been a bard. He gave more wizard energy to me. Is she dancing? Did he autos irresistible dancer? No. How long does autos last? Oh, it only lasts a minute. That wouldn't work. How long does Power Word Pain last? At the end of each of its turns, it repeats the save. That wouldn't work. How long does Power Word Stun last? A lot of the power words don't last very long. Maybe Befuddlement? Because this is at the end of every 30 days. That could be it. I think it's some sort of high-level enchantment. Remember, there exists a very pretty line that we should all hold collectively. Words of Terror, aka gaslighting. It's awesome. It's so cool. Oh, man. Okay, let's see.
Come with me.
Come with her. Let's see.
Steps over the stone, leads you inside of the fortress. She turns the corner and stops, staring into the room as you guys approaching.
I thought you didn't like enchantment. I don't like charms. I've realized, honestly. Because, I mean, in general, maybe I should make a distinction. What I think is cool and interesting for a story versus what I think is terrifying. and scary. Enchantment is easily the most terrifying and scary school of magic to me. Bar none across the board. Enchantment is so scary, it should be illegal in every self-respecting, even medium magic setting. It should be far more feared than something like necromancy. The type of enchantment that I don't find narratively interesting or mechanically interesting is possession. I think possession is terrible. And then lower, I think charms are like 50-50. I think sometimes charms are very interesting and sometimes they aren't. I think it can kind of go either way. But frightening stuff, modifying your memory, super scary, but very narratively interesting. Like most of the enchantment school, honestly, I think is very interesting. Scary, but interesting. There's just a few full dominates I don't love. Full dominates and charms. Anything that makes you a full-on puppet has to be handled carefully because it takes away a lot of agency from the player and other players at the table. And like that, if handled delicately and with care, can be interesting, but I think is often not. So yeah. And then like full-on ghost possession, which is questionable if that should even be considered enchantment. When a specter or something possesses a player, I hate that because it lacks all of the narrative juiciness and it only has the mechanical and gameplay downsides, in my opinion. Unless you really inject a lot of narrative to it. So I guess I shouldn't say I always hate it, but it takes a lot of legwork on the side of the DM to make it a justifiable trade-off. I love the idea of making a Kilgrave-like bard going to level 20 in College of Eloquence. Enchantments as a whole are terrifying if real. Sometimes of enchantment are far worse than others, though. Yeah, absolutely. Friends is terrifying, but society could function. Modify memory is society destroying. It is. What level is modify memory? This is why when we talked about this is a good example of why I care about the level of magic of a setting and variance there. When they first got to Fort Daxio, and we were talking about magical variation within the setting, when I was talking about the airship, all of those sorts of things. I think this applies to something like Skyrim, right? Skyrim has a weird level of magical variance. If you look at the magical power that is available to most people broadly, it's a high magic setting. But all of the world building implies low magic, or at least medium. And I think that really matters when it comes to verisimilitude and things feeling right. Modify memory is a great example. It's 5th level. In most of my worlds that I've run, 5th level magic is like, there's less than 100 people in the world that have access to 5th level magic. Probably less than 100. And so when you constrain the magic like that, you don't have to bake in considerations for things like modify memory into your world building. But if a caster that can cast 5th level spells could be expected in any given settlement of substantial size, that suddenly becomes something you have to take into account. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Have you watched My Hero Academia? I have not. I've gotten it recommended by one of my buddies who watches a lot of anime. It's like My Hero Academia is on the list. Berserk is on the list. Mob Psycho 100 is on the list. There's quite a few animes. I need to get back into Delicious in Dungeon. Unfortunately, man, I'm so not into food. Delicious in Dungeon is actually a little bit of a hard watch. I found it really intriguing and novel at the beginning, and I find the characters pretty compelling, but the focus on food is actually a net negative for me, even though I think it's a good artistic choice. The show would be degraded if the focus on food was not there. It might just not be for me, unfortunately. I feel really bad about that because I'm really interested in it, but I don't know. I'm going to try to push through at some point. But I got more anime on the list. There's a guy aspiring to be a hero there that has basically a mind power, and there's this whole stigma about it because it's clearly a villain power. Yeah, I agree. It is clearly a hero power. The Spectre stuff in the Daggerheart demo campaign did it right. Possession, but with narrative juicy. I think it baked in a lot, and it also is more like a stun than a full-on possession, which I think was good. The quintessential enchantment villain is Kilgrave. Kilgrave is so existentially scary without being that powerful. He's a really good example of a heavy air quotes, not that powerful villain that is so terrifying. Theoretically, Thanos is more powerful than Kilgrave, but I think Kilgrave is scarier, just broadly. Yeah. Easiest way to do that in world building is have there be no schools that they teach beyond above a certain level. Though if you take your players past there, you need some way for them to do it. I agree. Like, I think in a basic, reasonable setting, even in high magic, limiting 99% of the populace to like level 1 and 2 spells and cantrips is going to solve, or not solve, but at least count for most of the really bad. It will let you get by with minor world building accommodation. Once like the 99% can get to the 3, 4, 5 level, that's when you unlock things like flight. Things that would just, I've given my rant about how Create Bonfire would modify society so much that it's unrecognizable. But that requires a lot of steps of thought as to why that would happen. When you get to 3rd, 4th, and 5th level spells, it doesn't require any train of thought. It requires like one level of thought to be like, oh, that wouldn't be good. That's available to most people. Ooh. Yeah. My recommendation for Meg to watch Jessica Jones Season 1. So I have seen Jessica Jones Season 1, or at least most of it. I don't know what it is. Normally, I like to analyze and have reasons and not just go purely on gut instinct. I don't know what it is, but I find the actress who plays Jessica Jones nearly unwatchable. I cannot explain it. I have no critical analysis that explains my thoughts. It's just a gut feeling. I cannot watch her act. I've seen her in other stuff. She's in Gilmore Girls. And like, anytime she is on screen, I want to turn the TV off. She's probably lovely, and I don't think she's a bad actress, but something about it triggers my fight or flight, specifically the flight. I want to leave the room. I'm being a little hyperbolic. Not much. I do not like watching her perform. Unfortunately, Jessica Jones is a little off the table. Most magic in D&D is dangerous and evil. What good can you do with a fireball? I think you can think down the rabbit hole of what good you can do with a fireball. Or at least, here's how I would put it. I view the process and the training necessary to cast a fireball similar to the training and processing that is necessary to do something like create bonfire. It is like creating fertilizer also created dynamite. There are processes in the world where you can either create mosquito nets, but with the same factory and materials, you can also create bullets. I view Fireball similarly. Now, I think it's pretty basic, actually. What it says about D&D, that most of the spells are of the dangerous variety rather than the helpful. I think it says that D&D is a combat-focused system. And there probably are a ton of really helpful, cool ways that magic could be used. He's focused on combat. Purple Man got the evil superpower. It's interesting that it evades analysis. Sometimes you just don't like a thing. Like everything that I think about, when I think about why I don't like other things, none of them apply to that actress and her performance. I cannot pin it down. It is like this ineffable X quality that some people have, and she has like a negative version of it. I'm trying to think of someone else who's like an X quality for me. Oh, before he passed, Anton Yelchin, shout out. Incredibly tragic He was taken far too soon. He has the opposite of this, where I look at his performances. Thomas is one of my favorite movies ever. By all accounts, it should be a relatively trash B movie, but Anton Yelchin and his performance is very technically good. It's not The Irishman, Goodfellas, or The Godfather. He has this X Factor quality in the shows that he was in that I cannot explain, but I'm riveted when Anton Yelchin was on the screen. The actress for Jessica Jones has the exact opposite of that for me. She has whatever he has, she has the negative version of it. And I have no explanation for it. It's hard for me to watch him be so despicable. I get that. I don't like Kristen in most things. I'm assuming that's the JJ actress. Because she's typecast as people I don't like. Preppy, vapid, but I love her in JJ because she's the exact opposite. That's fair. Yeah, that's very fair. Alfred Nobel, who created dynamite, hated it because he did it to help building and mining, but it got used to kill. Exactly. That's how I view magic. Similar to nuclear fission being used for energy and bombs, power plants and bombs. These things, the magics in D&D absolutely could be put to more productive and non-destructive uses, but I think broadly, yeah, D&D is a combat-focused system. It's not a post-apocalypse where you're trying to survive and manage your resources. More productive magic would have a more fitting place within that sort of setting. I think NPC magic would be less combat focused than player available spells. I think so too. I think it absolutely should be. One thing that I always remind DMs and players alike is all of the spells that we are aware of in D&D are explicitly called out by every rulebook. Not every spell that exists. There is raw rationale to create your own spells. And for all the DMG's faults, the DMG walks you through how to create your own spells in Dungeons & Dragons 5e, at least. So there's definitely very much room for you to create your own productive versions of these spells. Yeah. I don't think it would sell, but it'd be interesting to see a setting book filled with non-combat spells. It would be. I also don't think it would sell, but it'd be interesting to see a segment on it, kind of like the common magic items segment in Xanathar's. It would be interesting to see a non-combat spell segment, yeah. What would be a level 9 household spell? I don't know. That's an interesting creative exercise. Let me think about it for a second. Let me get rid of modified. Let me just look at enchantment, 9th level spells. Probably going to be the closest to household type stuff. Power Word Heal is a pretty obvious one. Yeah, Power Word Heal, resurrection spells are very straightforward there. I think there's a lot of defensive, but that's not really a household thing. Something like Sanctify, like something that prevented demons or demonic influence for like a year. Something that sanctified holy ground. Something around fecundity, something that maybe made someone fertile that wasn't before, or helped an entire colony or settlement get pregnant, something like that. I could see something there. Some sort of long-term enchantment that kept up maintenance, like an anti-erosion enchantment or an anti, and I'm using the word enchantment loosely, not as in the D&D school, but as in like a permanent thing that you place. Like an anti-erosion or an anti like entropy enchantment that reduces the need for maintenance around the area. I think something along those lines could be interesting. I think you would see a lot of like household spells have longer durations than combat, because combat is quintessentially a pretty short-term project, to put it clinically, let's say. Combat is not normally a long-term thing, and if it is, it moves around. So I think you would see a lot of non-combat, like household type stuff, be things that are maybe less flashy than a combat spell, but last for a longer duration. Even compare something like the mosquito nets to the bullets that I mentioned earlier, right? A mosquito net is like a long-term investment of that material and that manufacturing time. A bullet, pop, done. Unless you, like, I guess, scavenge it and reload, whatever. Like do like a reloading bench type thing, but that's just, that's recycling. So I think that's what you would see from a lot of household or non-combat spells and situations is flashier or not as flashy and less that have longer durations than maybe their more combat-oriented counterparts. Especially for setting like a Frigid Wasteland, non-combat stuff could really work if they'd included more household or survival type spells in something like Dragons of Icespire Peak or Icewind Dale section on like non-combat spells. That could be cool. There's got to be some low-level cantrip spell that would just make normal life livable in a Frigid Wasteland. Create Bonfire is like the most flexible spell in D&D because it's a cantrip. For most people, Cure Wounds is the same as Heal. They don't have a strong enough HP for it to matter. That's true. That's true. The video upload date isn't the date it was streamed. Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, okay. Okay, so it's what's the discrepancy on it? December 1st, 2016, January 11th. Within 2 months-ish. That might matter at some point. Okay, good to know. Yeah. Oh, I mean, also Goodberry. Yeah, Goodberry's a good example. The discussion reminds me of Stewpot, the TTRPG about retiring from adventuring. There's a lot of, and that is ultimately what I'm getting at when I say, at the end of the day, D&D is a combat-oriented TTRPG. And that's why the spells are combat-oriented. Is these sorts of non-combat spells could certainly have their place in D&D, but are going to be more prevalent and or, I mean, often more useful in other TTRPGs a lot of the time.
You walk up to one of the small meeting chambers, the one that you met.
Jesus, I gotta play more Critical Role. There have been too many tangents. I gotta play some CR.
Ellie with when you first arrived here. And as you begin to approach, Kima turns back and says, "It's okay. Friends are here." You walk in and you see Allura sitting looking really scared in the corner in her robes, sitting on a chair, her knees pulled to her chest, and just kind of... Her eyes widen as she sees you all. And she kind of just gets up from the chair and runs over the person who's probably the first to walk in there would probably be Keyleth at this point, and just wraps her arms around you and just holds you for a second and shakes.
Are you okay? What happened? I thought you were dead for a second.
And she goes, "Wait."
What's your name?
She's been
feeble-minded. She cast
Restoration?
I turned to Kima.
Yeah, so some doesn't appear to be able to talk and or had her int reduced. Feeble mind is a good guess.
Feeble mind.
I don't know what that is.
Did she
help her?
Yes.
Pycan.
It's a restoration spell.
Yeah. I'm gonna cast Greater Restoration on her. I don't have any 5th level left, but I have a 7th.
Yeah.
Can I cast it at a 7th?
You do have a 7.
Can I cast it at that?
Oh, you can definitely cast it.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Oh no!
No.
Burning on her. Just do it.
It doesn't affect the power.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't make it a more powerful.
Stressful.
So as you approach, Kima, your hands begin to glow as you reach up your holy symbol, beginning to burn with a bright whitish orange color that mingles with the red and gold of the armor across your chest. As the glow sparks in your fingers, she goes,
It's okay. I'm gonna help you.
I try and calm her as best as I can to help Pike. Any assistance I can provide.
She reaches forward and kind of slowly touches and grabs your hand. You watch as the light transfers from your hands and gauntlets into her arms and upper sleeves. She kind of winces from it, but you keep holding her tight. As it reaches her mind, her face, the glow kind of passes through and lifts off her like gentle steam. Her eyes roll back for a second and close. "You are a godsend, my dear."
Oh, I grab her and hug her.
Pulls you in for a big hug and lifts you up off the ground for a second before she puts you back down. As she pulls back, she looks at you all, and immediately, Frog and Vex, you feel yourself pushed apart as Kima rushes up and just grabs her around the side and says, "Don't do that again!" Kind of holds her for a second. Lord just kind of rubs her hands. I'm sorry, I should have been careful.
Seems to really give it all in combat. I was just talking to Paige about this. Actually, Paige might be able to explain it better. Let me see if she's doing something that could actually explain it. I don't want to exactly put words in her mouth because it isn't something I had thought about ahead of time, but when she said it, it made a lot of sense. One moment. Hey, are you free? Could you come on stream? What you said about D&D combat being easier to roleplay there. That was very interesting and very insightful from a new player.
I don't remember what I said to you. D&D combat is easier to roleplay during. I don't know. It because you have like turns. Because you have it be like, this is your turn, this is your turn, this is your turn. It is easier because you have turns and it's like, oh, this is my turn to take the spotlight. It's a lot easier. And then even when it is other people's turns, when they're looking through their sheet to decide what they're doing, it provides a very normal lull that I can roleplay during.
You told me during the out of combat section, you had a lot of fear about interrupting someone.
Yeah.
If they were in the middle of their thought process or something.
Yeah, and I also talked about, like, I have 0 charisma in our campaign, and so I don't want to be the one talking to NPCs and then need to roll and, like, fuck something up, so.
Yeah.
That's it.
You did great. She said that to me after the game, because midway through the game, the first half was very roleplay heavy. We had a break between that and the latter half, which was the combat. During the break, she was like, am I doing better at interjecting? I was like, you should talk and roleplay however much you want, but you're definitely talking and roleplaying less than the other 2 players. And I do know that you want to be on equal footing with them. So from an outside perspective, it doesn't seem like you are accomplishing the thing that you want. Then we got to the combat, and she roleplayed a bunch, more than the other 2 characters. Very appropriately, I think. Afterwards, she was like, oh yeah, it was nice to have my turn. Explicitly. That might be something very similar to what Ashley experienced in this episode, especially for new players who don't have as much experience with the flow of a non-combat area, people that aren't very familiar with the way the other characters interact. The other characters might not be super defined yet, like especially at the beginning of a campaign. The players are still kind of figuring out who and what their particular character is and how they act. And that tumultuous time can be harder for a new player or someone who doesn't play very often to hop into. So I can see why someone might find it easier to RP during combat. It is why I'm scared of non-initiative games. I hate to interrupt and it feels really bad, but almost every other system seems to think people can handle that. Why do you expect your group of social outcasts of playing a TTRPG to be good at a social thing? I think that there is, like having played Daggerheart or Blades, I think that can definitely be a factor. I saw it play out in Blades, which is a no initiative system. People just have to kind of pipe up. And I saw certain players handle it better or worse. I think the big recommendation that I would give is one of my players is very good at piping up. Very similar to me when I play. We have to actively hold ourselves back from piping up. In the Blades in the Dark game, he went a very rogue mastermind type character. He was often explicitly, and we kind of cast him, even though there was no actual leader, because he was the planner, he was cast as the leader a lot of times. And the way he handled that was asking people questions and moderating the discussion. If you are an experienced player at a table with some non-experienced players, taking on that role of the mastermind, the face, or the intelligent person makes a lot of in-fiction sense for them to constantly be piping up. But in that role, you divert attention to the maybe not so experienced players. The first few times you do that, it'll probably make them uncomfortable. But having that presence at your table will eventually work out giving that player the spotlight more regularly and helping them get into things. That would be my main recommendation. Honestly, I played our Blades campaign for 6 months, so take my recommendation with a grain of salt. I will try to say a thing and get talked over and then go silent and not add anything more for a while, even in real life, not just RP. Absolutely. I get that. He's the only one who recognized how much everyone else talked over me. And it can be hard for the DM to manage that. They absolutely should try, but it is hard, especially if the DM doesn't have a NPC surrogate in the scene. It can be very hard for the DM to try and redirect that spotlight. Frankly, it's easier in combat. It's a lot easier for the DM to navigate that spotlighting in a combat than it is in a social situation. Anyways, I'm trying to cut myself off more because we need to watch.
It seems to form in the corpse, and the mist kind of absorbs into the body. And all of a sudden the jaw just opens. Air fills its chest, and the head leans up, the eyes still kind of staring off into the distance, but it seems to be addressing you, Pike.
Okay, so I'm gonna walk over to him, And I put my hand on his face. I say, my friend, I am so sorry that you've fallen in battle, but I had to bring you back to ask you some questions. I just got so nervous.
Where's the beef?
So we know that you've been working with Thordak, and I just have some questions. Has Thordak had a visit from Raishan?
Make a persuasion check.
22.
The head kind of creaks a little bit as it tilts upward. You can hear the unnatural puppeteering of the body trying to speak. Not the spirit, but the body's memory.
He's had no visit.
Okay.
How did they find out?
I need to record the questions and answers. I'm debating if I should take into account the persuasion result, but I think I should, mostly because it represents the non-audible parts of things. Checks represent things in the game, and so I think I should still take them into account, or at least write them down for something like an interrogation. Has Thordak had any visits from Raishan? Equation 22. No visits. He speaks through his crystals. Boop. All right. Oh, wait, fuck, that's the wrong button.
Oh, he speaks to his crystals.
But we don't know.
There's some dickhead.
I just have 4 more questions for you, and then I will let you go in peace. How did you know that we were at Fort Def?
2 days before, maybe less, scouting party left them on. Saw activity at the fort. When they checked, they saw you, and you were marked.
I remember this. There was a persuasion when the 2 twins were flying over the fort 2 days before. A scouting party was around the fort. They saw the party.
Can you inside check Mark?
Who's Mark?
Sure.
Vox Machina, I'm assuming. Are you...
That might be what he's referring to, and you get the sense that long ago when you guys were high up in the broom,
Yeah, it was
with
fun.
Mazamon, you missed seeing something that possibly...
I remember that. I rolled a 24 on insight.
Okay. The questions seem to be probing too deeply, and he seems to be on the level with Pike.
Okay.
Do you know of any secret entrances into Iman?
It's just the Traverse Junction.
Traverse Junction. We've heard of that before.
Yeah, we have.
That's where he used to work. That's the...
The teleportation circle.
But those are where the clasp reign dominion.
Who within the city still fights against the dragon? Who will be our allies? Who can we trust?
That's a whole lot. Who within the city fights against Thordak?
Are we looking for allies? Like, who doesn't?
We want to know
wanna
who
know the
Thordak is, and we want to know who Thordak does in that cover.
2 questions left.
But that can cover
Thordak doesn't trust anybody.
Well, the class was clearly working for him.
No.
No.
The opposite.
The class reigns dominion.
They might still be resisting. The question.
Is anybody
Asking-
in the city? Yeah.
Asking this
Yeah.
shithead who still resists within the city will answer. a
Yeah.
voice.
Let me just confirm the actual phrasing, because I think she said something different than the phrasing I had written down, which was possibly different than the phrasing that was actually said. The clasp reigns dominion. Who within the city? That's the... Or the tunnels beneath. Those are where the clasp reign dominion. Okay. I'm assuming there's some slight fuckiness with the words there. I'm not taking the individual words too seriously. John? I would assume, but I am not entirely sure. That's not something. Anyway, I got distracted. Let's see.
Assume and his companion, and the dragon cannot maintain her usual form around the ziggurat, so just be ready. As you make your way into the chamber, you can see there's the platform on the outside, the central area where the new situation is set. You see there's a table, and you can hear discussion up that way. There are a few servants bringing food and drinks as part of like the morning breakfast for those who are in their meeting. You see right on the outskirts of the table, wrapped and curled up, a gargantuan green dragon with its head kind of resting on its claws that is listening in and part of the conversation.
Hey, little guy.
Well, things have not been going well on our end. How about yours?
To Cassandra?
To it.
The room, okay, so as you approach the platform, everyone kind of pauses and looks over. Assume stands up. You can see now, this being the real Assume, acid scarred across the face, just as Raishan's form arriving was, and is sitting on the opposite end of Raishan. And you can see there's this very much kind of understanding, especially as a master of spies and information, understands the importance of, you know, strange bedfellows given circumstances in war, but still not at ease and doesn't seem to keep, always has one eye on the dragon at all times, but gives a nod. It's good to see that you're all alive, and we have much to discuss. Please come sit. You've met Braum before, and you look over and you can see Braum Goldhand, same square-jawed, shorter, black, unkempt hair, the cleric of Ayun that was and is part of the council. However, skin is covered in burn scars. Like face, some of the features are kind of missing. All the exposed elements beyond the armor is just burn. But he stands and bows to everyone. It is good to see you all alive. He sits down at the table.
So I just want to confirm. Brom Goldhand is a bit of a question mark because Gilmore said that he died during the fall of Amon according to Gilmore. I remember the episode. It's when they are rescuing Gilmore. I want to go back and watch that really quick. I want to see how confident or not Gilmore was in that. It seems to me that it's super possible that it was just an I think he's probably dead sort of thing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's. Hello, and good evening, everyone. If these turn out well and people like them, and go click.
Okay, I don't know about 2:32. Like 2 hours 32? 2 hours 32 might be more accurate. I could see that. 2 hours 32. Okay, that makes sense. Did you just say he's covered in burn scars? That's what I'm thinking, Delphi. And that's why I want to check it now. I want to check to see exactly how Gilmore phrased it because I didn't note down the exact phrasing. I saw him go into a fireball and it was an off-screen death. If it was like Gilmore thought he died and like it was an off-screen sort of thing, then that might be fine. I want to see exactly how it was phrased. I actually pressed send early. All good. 32:45. Let's see.
No, I'm glad you didn't. You may not be here.
Did you see any others from the council?
He leans forward and sits up out of your lap for a second to look at the rest of you.
I was out of his lap, right?
And there were quite a few dead, unfortunately. Brom Goldhand didn't make it.
Okay. Brom Goldhand didn't make it. I'm going to keep watching. I know he talks about it for a second more, but just going to note really quick. From Ep 41, around 33. Gilmore. Brom Goldhand didn't make it. When asked about the other council members, Gilmore responded, Brom Goldhand didn't make it. Is this the only one he mentions by name?
Most of the guards are gone. Half, if not more, of the Cloudtop district has been killed by the poisonous fume that...
Yeah, okay. In Gilmore's initial response, Brom is the only council member directly names as being dead. This could be a plot hole.
Took the entire area suddenly.
Let me see. Poisonous fume. I don't know.
Perhaps make our way towards...
Is there any point in searching for more council members or allies?
Is that before we go?
When I returned, there were...
Anyone that was alive that you saw?
There were many that were alive by the time I returned. They were all kneeling before the beast.
So we don't know if it's off screen. Is there any point in searching for more council members or allies? When Scanlon asks, is there any point to searching for more council members or allies before we go? Is anyone alive that you saw? Gilmore, there were many that were alive by the time I returned. They were all kneeling before the beast. Gilmore's going to be there, so he'll be able to dispel any possible contradictions, we would think. Does the Singer King have mind control? He's just very persuasive. I did notice in his chest. I'm going to Control F Brom. Oh, that is on the wrong screen. I'm going to Control F both Brom and Assume. Those are the two people I'm curious about. Brom Goldhand didn't make it. 1 out of 1 matches. Cool. Assume. Okay. Uriel pushed me away when they attacked. So this is right before he says that Brom is dead. I got who I could, but Uriel pushed me away. He's trying to get others out of the fray. Did you see him fall? I didn't see him fall, but when I went back, I found him fallen. And he said that also when he went back, he found all of the people kneeling. His body, what was left of it, I brought it back to Salda and the children. I brought back Assume and that abrasive dragon girl. I don't know where they are right now. They both left. They went topsoil to try and find other survivors. I told them to stay, but they're off in the city somewhere trying to make sense of this. Gilmore says that when he went back, everyone that was alive, he saw kneeling. There were many that were alive, but they were all kneeling before the beast. The only people he brought back were Assume and the abrasive Dragonborn. I don't know where they are right now. Alda says that they went back to try and find other survivors. The only other person of the council that is mentioned is Brahm, and he says he's dead, but he doesn't say how. That's so interesting. There are quite a few dead, unfortunately. Brahm Goldhead didn't make it. And at that point, Gilmore got Assume out. So what the fuck is going on? Brahm is also standing there next to the magic orbs. No disguise, which is important. So this isn't an imposter. Unless Brahm has always been a changeling or something, but I don't think so. She's always been a doppelganger. I wish I'd been taking notes back when all of the council members were first described. I don't even remember. It's either in Shopping and Shipping or Skyward. I know how to find it. They describe the council members at the same time as they've mentioned the Briarwoods. I want to see how all of the people were described. Turn attention to sciences. One day, a mysterious couple named Percy awoke, chained to the dungeon. On thoughts, is she even worthy? Oh, wait, what is this? Oh, this is like all of their backstories. Oh, did they used to play that during the middle of episodes? Okay, so it's not that one. It might be during Shopping and Shipping. Because I don't remember all of the members of the council. I don't even think I wrote them down. Actual Brahm could be doing some trickery. Exactly. Actual Brahm, even if... Because, like, we just got explicit confirmation that powerful people within Amon are collaborating. So Brahm could easily be collaborating. One day, Briarwoods came to court, and Lord Lane Briarwood were rather nice when they came to town. Oh? We did meet Sildor of Singorn, the Corsian League from Wildmount. Wait, what is all this? The Wilder Ferns? They're the merchant guild. Oh, that's time. In 45, Matt mentioned that Assume and Topher were confirmed alive. I think the Dragonborn he mentioned is Tofor. I see. I want to find where he goes through each person's name and description.
What do you think, Pike?
Have another out?
I do trust a... This is true.
Time as well. I'd be free of my usual business.
They have resources from across the world. They have members from across the world. I'm assuming she means the Arcana Panasophical, the A-team. Are you guys familiar with the Wilder Ferns? What is this?
I am glad to be free of my usual business. You guys familiar with Fens? We're a bloody merchant guild. We've left our chambers. Look, since you've been gone and the council matters have been brought up to speed once more, we've had to deal with the backlog of all the various council meetings that have been pushed back for months and months. It's been a relative nightmare. So this, how dangerous as it is, I'm taking it as a nice change from the usual political bullshit I've been dragged into on a weekly basis. Between the Wilder Fens, there was the Corsican League from Wildmount, and they just tore through a caravan of partying gypsies that destroyed everything in their path.
Who?
It's the Corsican League. Corsican League.
The Corsican League.
Wait. Okay, there's no way, right? There's no way that if I Control F one of the names on Animus, there's no way anything comes up here. What's his name? Bertrand Dwendal. There's no way that Bertrand Dwendal comes up right now. Dwendal. Okay, no. I'm just going to search Topher. How do I spell his name? Topher. Topher? Oh, wait, no, Tofor. Next to him is here it is. Here's the descriptions. The council, of course, is at the center. Okay, we've got him.
The council, of course, has at the center, across the table from you, Sovereign Uriel Taldori II himself, the leader of Iman and the current sovereign of all of Taldori, this section of the continent. You see him with his characteristic dark hair.
Girl? Oh.
With kind of graying sides, cut shorter than you recall. He's recently got a trim, and some very well-kept facial hair. He's wearing his ceremonial robes, which are the same gold and red color as the armored soldiers that greeted you at the front of the palace. Next to him, you see Lord Riskel Daxio.
Holy shit, that like threw me off for a second, the music that's playing in the background. That's a track that I use for break music. That's a Kevin MacLeod classic, dude. That's so...
Elven male who helped you guys handle your purchasing of the keep when you were awarded that at the end of your last journey.
Riskel Dax.
Trade currently within Iman. You can see he has kind of a long, kind of strawberry blonde hair that is pulled into actual use. His armor seems to be loose and more decorative.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Female Dragonborn Paladin. Okay, I'm just gonna Guardian, because I don't have an entry for Tofor. Guardian Tofor Bratoris, female, dragonborn, paladin. And we know that in this setting, or at least it's implied that paladins are divinely related.
Next to him is Guardian Tofor Bratoris, a female dragonborn paladin.
Guardian who's a what now?
Guardian Tofor Bratoris.
Tofor.
Her name's been mentioned before, but this is the first time you guys have actually seen her in person. It's a female dragonborn paladin. She is adorned in full...
And she's a paladin, right? Paladin. Okay.
Silvered platinum plate, a symbol of a greeting towards the holy way. She looks across the rest of the group there, and as soon as she meets your gaze, she kind of gives you a look of deep...
Yes.
You should
Right.
sit across the table. It's far from me.
Mind your tongue.
Themselves and kind of hearing this slight discussion. Next to her, there is a halfling male in kind of a rangerish garb.
That's assume. Tattoos on the side. What? Oh.
Black cloak. He's shaved bald with tattoos on one side of his face. He introduces himself with, "I'm the master of secrets here within the council." And he extends a hand. Discussion with another human which you've not met. He's kind of a built and armored individual. Looks probably stands the tallest of the entire group. Thick square jaw, kind of unshaved.
I suppose I should introduce myself.
Brom Goldhand, I recently, as of 3 months ago, taken up the position that General Krieg once held. I didn't remember that. Oh, interesting. Brom, also I guess they changed the spelling of his name. Brom Goldhand, recently taken up as of 3 months ago. Also gives a bit of a timing on the potential time gap between some pre-stream events. Interesting. The position that General Krieg once held within the city. Goldhand is giving me real Drake Thunderblood or whatever his name is. Drake. What's his name? What's Drake's last name? Drake, I'm a dragon. Well, I'm gonna have people of power probably. No, not, wait, figures of authority? Do I not have him public? He should be under here. Where's Drake? Thunderbrand. I remembered it. The gold hand is giving me real Thunderbrand energy. It's a need for a new master of law. Sovereign finishes writing some papers. Thank Lord and Lady Briarwood. So that's all in terms of the council. So the council is... Daxio, the council in Tofor, Brom. I'll do Riskel, assume, Brom, Tofor, and Allura, I think. Is that it? I think there's just 5. That is smaller than I pictured. The reason that I wanted to look at this specifically...
Hello, everyone, and welcome back.
Allies.
The reason that I wanted to look at this specifically is to inform my thought process on Gilmore's answer. So, in this case, we know that Allura is gone. Assumingly, possibly Gilmore knows that as well. Riskel Daxio has already turned at the time of episode 41. He mentions Assume, and then he mentions Brom and Tofor. So, knowing that Riskel is not there, these are the only 3 members of the council that Gilmore, that they could even be referring to. Like, when Scanlan asks his question, these are the only 3 that could even be referenced. And Gilmore says, where does he say it? I should note exactly what Gilmore says. Anyone alive that you saw? Let me open up the transcripts. I want to note the thing about him rescuing. What little blood, the Cinder King. He ripped out the heart of the city. Oh, wait. It was before. It was in the 230s. Yep. Gilmore also notes they went topsoil to find other survivors. I told them not to. This is sticking out to me so hard. Can't maintain her usual form. Oh, no. There it is. Gilmore. I brought back Assume and that abrasive dragon girl, Tofor. They went and looked for other survivors. So out of the 3, we have already accounted for Assume and Tofor. Literally, the only other person that could be referenced is Brom. And he just says, Brom is dead. Fascinating. Okay, so now let's see how this gets possibly resolved. Let's see. Reread the transcript again because Brom is not the one that took over for Krieg. Wait, what? Oh, fuck me.
10 o'clock.
Oh no. Shit. Oh no, I fucked up. Brom's not the one that took over for Krieg. I should be able to just control F Krieg and get
Another
straight
human
to it.
met.
I should be able to just control F the transcript for Krieg and that'll pop right up.
I am Arbiter Brom Goldhand, and I have recently taken up, as of 3 months ago, the position that General Krieg once held within the city.
What? That seems pretty straightforward to me. I don't know. Unless you have some alternative evidence that you can point me towards. Seems like he took over for Krieg. Gathered on my end. Whitestone to figure out if there's any news. Let's go to sleep. I was looking at Ep 24 where there's a correction. Wait, that's actually very interesting.
Hello, everyone.
If there's a correction, that could inform things. No, not Krieg. So I guess Brom. Let's see. You also see Arbiter Brom Goldhand, who is the Master of Law, was previously one of the heads of the guard here within Amon, and then was given the job of being the head of the Watchful Hall. Tofor is the Master of Defense that took over for Krieg after Krieg was slain. Oh, shit. Interesting. In Ep 24, these descriptions are corrected / retconned to have Tofor be the one that Krieg and Brom be and Brom not be that. Interest. Which would then mean that Brom was around for all of the Krieg stuff. Very interesting. I guess that makes sense why Gilmore knows Assume Brom, but not the Dragonborn? The Dragonborn, as he calls her. I guess that makes a little bit more sense why he wouldn't know her. Interesting. I misremembered at first which transcript I was looking at. Fascinating. I'll consider this authoritative. Okay. How is Gilmore going to even address the fact that he said that Brom was dead? Is it going to be addressed? Let's see.
This is a
Good girl.
Right.
Because everything I am seeing leads, if Gilmore doesn't say anything at all, I'm going to be confused, number one. But if we were not presented with Brom directly as a person within the black hole range, I would assume it's an imposter. Because everyone else on the council is accounted for, and Gilmore says that Brom was dead. So let's see.
And as she's walking along, she goes, well, we've managed to maintain message for those who are in the kind of rest. Things have not. So as your platform, the real assume, and you can see the fellows given circumstances in war, but it's still not at ease and doesn't seem to keep. And we have much to discuss. Please come sit. You've met Brom before, and you look over and you can see Brom Goldhand, same square-jawed, shorter black, unkempt hair, the cleric of Ayun that was and is part of the council. However, the skin is covered in burn scars, like face.
Also interesting that they didn't originally mention that he's a cleric of Ayun. In the first two descriptions, they mentioned him as, he mentioned the physical characteristic and that he was, the keeper of law, but not that he was a cleric of Ayun. Until very recently, where they said the only Ayun worshiper they're aware of is Brom. Maybe he was resurrected. He could have been resurrected by Ayun. Given Osisa's use of the Heartstone, which seems a little bit taboo, I wouldn't put it past her to subvert the normal flow of things. You can be a worshiper without being a cleric. True. So, he was introduced, no Ayun mentioned. Then he was introduced as a worshiper a couple of episodes ago. And now he's a cleric. The mention in 26 that he was a cleric of Ayun. He divined the truth from the old lady they killed. Right. He is the one that divines the truth. I forgot about that. In Ep 26, Brom was the one that got the truth of the matter from the old lady that Vox killed, who is the cleric that is the master of law in the city. Interesting. Okay, let's see.
Some of the features are kind of missing. All the exposed elements beyond the armor is just burned. But he stands and bows to everyone. He sits down at the table. Cassandra takes a seat.
And if they don't address it at all, I'm going to keep up my suspicions. But it is clearly possible that Gilmore was just mistaken. There's all of this damage, all these burn scars. It's very interesting. And I want to confirm one thing before I move on. He says burn scars. Some of the features are kind of missing, just burned. Okay. Point to remember. Raishan is the one that disrupted whatever they were at. The announcement. That disrupted Uriel's announcement during the fall of Iman. Assume has and I want to make sure it's specifically referred to as an acid scar, right? Or is it an acid burn? It says acid scarred. Assume's face is described as acid scarred, and Gilmore makes mention of the toxic fumes during their conversation afterward. Rom, on the other hand, is referred to as burn. Now, there's a construction that we can make here of, like, Thordak was the one, because Gilmore was burned as well. Gilmore's described as burned, and everyone's bowing to the beast. This could still make sense, as Gilmore nearly died combating. So that could be where Brom got the burns. Everything could be reasonable. It's just interesting as being the only one that was, quote unquote, like, Gilmore didn't even say, like, I couldn't find him. Because Gilmore specifically says that he cannot confirm that Uriel is dead. He specifically is like, I didn't see the body. But when talking about Brom, he says he's dead. So we know that Gilmore does draw a delineation between those things. Gilmore highlighted an off-screen death, so to speak. But he just said Brom was dead. I don't know.
I said nothing. And she's kind of watching you all as you sit down, gives a nod. Allura flanks behind you. Kima has been asked not to attend. Allura sits down, and there's a few stools. Whatever chairs were available were brought in here, so it's a ramshackle meeting.
Did see him fallen. Oh, that's a good point. Either way, Gilmore drew a delineation between those things. He didn't draw the same delineation for Brom. Because I feel like if he hadn't seen a dead body, which we would assume, or if he had, maybe because he saw the fireball, he just assumed that Brom was dead, but then Brom just wasn't. And he just survived there on the ground.
Given how many butts have to sit around this area.
I'll stand.
But you are here. I've been told that you are...
What's up? I saw someone mention that, like, it's astonishing that Matt has contradicted himself so little. I agree. To be clear, the fact that I can theorize as proficiently as I can is a testament to Matt's consistency and lore. I wrote some things down during the break. Given the Ioun Belisk outside, seems like Ioun temples may or may not be places that it is easier to pierce the veil between dimensions. I theorize that the Whitestone Ziggurat could be powering whatever Thordak is building, like powering its construction, and that's why Raishan is interested in the Whitestone Ziggurat. She is. Also, all of the currently known Ziggies, at least, 2 of them, 2.5, depending on if the not Glitterheim, what the fuck is the Glintshore. The Glintshore altar sounded like the altar that is on the top of the Whitestone Ziggurat, but we didn't see any Ziggurat-like construction around it. Could have been buried. You know, lot of things could be affecting that, but we didn't see that. But the confirmed Ziggurats that we know of are ancient Ioun temples, according to Osisa. Sphinx Mountain is also probably an Ioun temple, given the Ioun obelisk that's right outside. It seems though, Ioun temples are either just good, like, channelers of magic, like assist in the channeling of magic, or possibly facilitate piercing the veil between dimensions. Osisa talks about how she can project her vision within the material plane using the Heartstone, but maybe that's why she has to be at the Ioun Temple. And besides the Pyra, all of the dimensional fuckery that we've seen so far has been at the Whitestone Ziggurat and Sphinx Mountain, which opened up the 4 portals to the elemental planes, or at least facsimiles of the elemental planes. Yeah, and other than that, it's like the only other place where a portal has been actually 2 places a portal has been opened. Pyra, and technically, although I would take it with a grain of salt, Westrun, as Sky Sunder in the pre-stream opened up a portal in the middle of Westrun, but that was also during Winter's Crest, which was a date during which the dimensional barriers are thin. The fact that everything beyond Sky Sunder is either at Ashari sites or at Ioun sites is very interesting. The closest other one that we have is at the Raven Queen Temple, but it seems more like their consciousness was projected. I don't think the Pool of Blood was an actual portal. I think it was like a medium in which they could mentally contact the Raven Queen, not necessarily physically. Glenshore was just a long, windy tunnel with an altar inside. Calling it a ziggurat is a bit extreme. I agree. With just what we've seen, that is definitely extreme. My only potential theory, and I kind of think this about the Sphinx Mountain as well, this is how I think the Sphinx Mountain is probably set up, is that the Ioun Ziggurat is buried. At some point in the past, there's a ziggurat that is constructed on what is now the Glinshore, but then over time, as the volcano appears or whatever happens, everything gets buried up until the very tippy top, right? So theoretically, if you were standing at the altar and you dug down, you could slowly unearth a ziggurat from underneath. Because the ziggurat in Whitestone and the ziggurat in Vasselheim are both buried. Why force that connection? I don't even think it is that forced. All of the ziggurats we have so far have been underground. It is just that the caverns around them have not collapsed. If the cavern is right next to an active volcano and the religious cult stops maintaining it, or the volcano, is formed after the religious cult is long gone, a la the sunken temple in the Marrowglade Loch, then it might sink underground and only a bit of it might be exposed. So I actually think beyond, and the Marrowglade Loch is another example. We have quite a lot of ancient religious sites that are now buried with very little exposed to the surface. Based on the fact that the altar was very similar, I don't think it's that much of a stretch, especially considering it's a siphon site for other reasons. I had to lay out the whole theory. I think it was just until it was used to resurrect Thordak, is what I would theorize. The resurrection of Thordak is what formed the volcano and ultimately buried the ziggurat. So, all buried ruins are potential ziggurats. I mean, currently, yeah. Currently, 3 out of 4 of the now buried sites have been Ioun related. Oh, wait, I forgot about the ziggurat in the Underdark, in Yugg-Viril. The only other place we've seen a random planar portal was in the Yugg-Viril cavern. Currently, the only places we have found Ioun worship sites are underground. All 3 of them have been in caverns, not like actually buried to where they needed to be unearthed. I would point to the volcano as the reason this one is buried rather than just in its cavern like the others. I think it was originally in a cavern, but that cavern collapsed around it due to volcano. A lot of ancient earthen sites are buried as well. It's a thing that can happen over time. Currently, 4 out of 5 of the ruined sites that we found are Ioun temples. If we count Osisa's vision, I'll count that as a half. If we count that as a half, 2.5 out of 3 of the Ioun sites, 3.5 out of 4 have been locations of dimensional planar bullshit. Without confirming or denying, the idea of a thing being buried like that is cool. I need to add some of that to my world. It's very, very cool, yeah. The Underdark and Glintshore had no Ioun symbol, but neither do the other ziggurats. Osisa just said ziggurats, as Vox Machina described them, are temples to Ioun. That was how Osisa phrased it. We don't know that Whitestone is a Ioun temple based on markings. We know it based on Osisa's testimony. So it's possible that the ziggurats are just broadly religious buildings, but we haven't seen any other ziggurats besides the one under the slit. The 3 ziggurats we've seen as ziggurats are Slayer's Take, Whitestone, and Yugg-Varil. Osisa said that 2 out of the 3 of those, confirmed straight up, are temples to Ioun. I personally don't think it's a huge stretch to say that the 3rd ziggurat that we have seen is also a temple to Ioun, especially given the dimensional fuckery around it. Because that had a portal to the plane of air, I believe? Either the plane of air or the plane of water. I don't think it was the plane of fire or earth. But it was on one of the side islands that they went to, not the actual Yugg-Varil island. But there was an open portal on one of the other islands. The goddess of knowledge, Ioun, also loves spelunking and has domain over caves. Seems like. Yeah. And the only we haven't seen planar shit at is Osisa. But again, she had a Heartstone, which is planar related. She talks about casting her vision away. But also, casting her vision away could be seen as scrying, so that's a little different. Things can be effective tells to a god without it being on purpose. Perhaps all ziggurats are things she claims, even if the builders didn't choose that. Also true. Very true. I'm just drawing connections here, as I understand it, I see. I don't know. There's something with the Glintshore. My mind keeps casting back to it. They didn't explore enough. If only they had explored that volcano a little bit more. I think there was more to find at the Glintshore. Because there's still the hanging question that I find it wild that Vox Machina has not looked into at all. The hanging question being, how did Thordak come back after Devosa killed him? That seems like such an important question. And they seem to just be taking it on faith that Devosa just didn't kill him. But Devosa seemed pretty damn confident. And save for Thordak, I think Devosa might be the most powerful being, save for the Raven Queen. The most powerful on-divine being that we've seen. At least comparable, just from what we've seen, to Artagan. I take Devosa's testimony with a grain of steel. And steel's heavier than feathers. I take Devosa's testimony with a grain of steel. And so I'm really... Thordak came back from death exactly as Braum did, yeah. Oh... Like that, to me, that seems like actually a huge, that the Vox just does not seem concerned with. That I am so concerned with. And I think it would give us a lot of overall answers, but they might just not do it, yeah. They had a pretty good reason for not exploring. Yeah, that's a good point, Ebster and John. I'll be real, I kind of forgot about that part. They weren't exactly in the most exploratory of moods when they were exploring that. You make a good point.
Oh,
that we've
talked about
the room.
There's a guy who's answers. We killed him. He was a dick.
What was worth telling is that he had already turned and was working for the Syndicate.
Who else?
He is now no longer with us.
Rom, do you know Osisa, the Sphinx?
Kind of thanks for a minute. I do not know this Sphinx, I'm sorry.
There's a temple to Ioun in Vasselheim.
There's a temple to Ioun in Vasselheim.
There is?
Many temples have fallen hidden through the years since our mistress was wounded.
You would have no way of contacting it?
Many temples have fallen and hidden, he says. Not all Ioun followers know each other. Many temples have fallen and hidden. Talk's a little weird. I think I'm not going to look too far into it. Fallen and hidden Makes it sound like the temples hid themselves on purpose, but I don't think that's the case. Since our mistress was wounded. He's from Gold Hand, not Silver Tongue. So true.
Many temples have fallen through the years since our mistress was.
Okay, the transcripts are not always super consistent with their quotation marks, but that seems crazy purposeful. Because they start a quotation mark right there and then give 2 quotation marks around mistress was wounded. That's crazy. Since our mistress was wounded. Sarcastic? No, I think it's drawing attention. It's like an event. Exandria exists in the Star Wars universe. Confirmed. Oh my god.
You would have no way of contacting it?
I can beseech my mistress for information, but short from traveling to Vasselheim, which I have not been to, I cannot help you. I apologize. Since the calamity, during a struggle with Thordak, my mistress was grievously wounded in the struggle.
Lore!
And since then has been diminished. In this time, many of those that seek to lessen her hold in the world and the spread of the information and knowledge that we wish to share have hunted and persecuted those of us that follow in her wake. The temples are buried or kept hidden. We distribute information through anonymous channels. Only a few of us in positions of protection can speak out so strongly. This, surprisingly, he turns back towards the cigarette. There's one such temple.
Right, we know, bro. Focus on the news. Okay. Since the calamity, a big lore drop. Since the calamity, during the struggle with Thordak, lesser hold spread the information and knowledge that we wish to share. So temples have been buried. So they were buried on purpose. Yeah, this was one such temple. Is Matt saying surprisingly?
Protection can speak out so strongly. This, surprisingly, he turns back towards the cigarette.
Oh, Matt saying surprisingly. I know, Matt. I'm not surprised at all. I don't think they're auto-generated at this point, nor are they flawless. I think they're transcribed by fans. There can be mistakes, but they're pretty good. They're way better than auto-generated. Who? Thordak. Since the calamity. So I don't know if the calamity is a descriptor of the calamity, or if it is saying since the calamity, post-calamity, there is a separate event, which is the struggle with Thordak. Also, Thordak does sound like Thordak. Crazy, wild, shot in the dark connection. Thordak kinda sounds like Thordak. And by kinda sounds like, I mean has a TH and a D. Names can change over time. Maybe Thordak got changed into Thordak. It's possible. I have no evidence for, except for vibes. I think that Thordak is a quasi-immortal enemy that continues to respawn and regenerate over the centuries. That's my only other connection point for that. Thordak. Oh, pronunciation notes. Thordak. Okay, keep going.
One such temple.
Right.
What? Yeah, that's right. This was a temple to Ioun.
Right. So wait, the Razadun?
Razatun, the chain of oblivion.
Another god?
Yes.
The
a very
chained
evil one.
oblivion.
Sealed, chained away. You need to worry about it.
A very evil one, sealed, chained away. Nothing you need to worry about. Thordak. 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 Yeah, you cannot say nothing you need to worry about after the chained oblivion. That is hilarious. Oblivion. I'm just going to rehash some of my connections that I have made previously.
Another god?
Yes, the one.
There is from Dune, chained oblivion. Very evil god. Sealed, chained away. Nothing. No, I'm not going to. Sealed, chained away. Okay, I just need to get some thoughts out of my head. Okay. Raven Queen and Ioun jointly manage. That's not how you spell joint. Jointly manage some areas in Vasselheim. Raven Queen ascended from mortality and deposed the previous god of death. Vecna is referred to as a demigod of death. Vecna attempted ascension, but was somehow stopped and banished. Even if not referred to as related to death, the power of Vecna resurrected Silas Briarwood and turned him into undead, a form that the Raven Queen very specifically spoke out against. So, Ioun and RQ are connected. A chain god wounded Ioun. A chained god wounded Ioun. Vecna is also banished / contained and is related to death. Could be that Tharizdun is either, and I've theorized before that Vecna was really the former god of death, not an ascended interloper. That Tharizdun is either the former god of death and Ioun was wounded during her supporting RQ's ascension, or that Tharizdun is an alternative name for Vecna, sort of a mortal name versus divine name situation, or both. And Tharizdun being the one to wound Ioun sort of creates this spiritual connection between them. If Tharizdun is Vecna, that could explain why the Vecna cult needed to use the White Stone. Ioun's presence on the material plane still bears the scars and wounds of Tharizdun. Those can be exploited to direct a ritual targeting the chained god. I'm thinking about when a dog bites someone, or, any animal. When you bite someone, you leave a mark, saliva, DNA, a remnant of yourself, a connection. So if Tharizdun, and these are gods we're talking about, in this divine battle, wounded Ioun, he might have left a little trace of himself within the wound. If you go to an Ioun site, there's a little bit of Tharizdun in there. Ioun can never fully separate herself from that wound, from the remnants of Tharizdun. Yeah. The goddess of knowledge was been injured and therefore weakened. His explanation for why the world stays in a technological stasis compared to our medieval period is insane. That is a very interesting. That is a very interesting note. Or observation, yeah. Question for after the episode ends. I'll look at it maybe. Very, very distracted. Sorry for my own lore notating. How do you recognize this inside the session and correct your mind to listening? I can't give an answer as a player because I just don't have enough experience playing to really give like good explanation there. But as a DM, if I notice someone possibly not paying attention, I'll try to phrase things in a way that I know speaks at like what they like about D&D. You know, I'll kind of frame things through a lens that they're, you know, particularly interested. I try to draw them in with increased interest. But a lot of times, even as a DM, I find that it is just difficult. You know, sometimes people are just going through some shit outside of the session and are not entirely able to lock in. I try to draw them back in with interest, but I don't know a good recommendation on strategy on how to do it from a player perspective. Yeah. I think it's implied that Tharizdun wounded Ayun before he was chained. I agree that is implied. Or in the process of chaining him. Since he has become chained, he has been relatively impotent, it seems. Based on Braum saying, hey, nothing for you guys to worry about. You know what I'm saying? Fascinating. I see some shit here. Wounded.
Sealed, chained away. Nothing to worry
about.
This.
We're going to have to go to a non.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. We'll rally all the troops outside and go.
They're just straight up taking him at his word that it's nothing they need to worry about. Fair enough. They do have more pertinent concerns, fair, but I don't know that I could let that lie.
Going through the tunnels? I guess when we rally the troops, we can form a more specific plan.
So I guess
There will be several. We will have allies. There will be troops to create distractions. There will be troops that go into the tunnels. There will probably be a group of troops that go in to try and pierce the layer. We will create chaos.
Ooh, did the airship ever show up?
Cassandra, yes, the airship has been told to make its way towards Fort Daxio.
Oh, wait.
It can actually pick up the...
Sure, yeah.
We're not doing any last trip to Vasselheim to talk to Osisa, since we got all the vestiges.
To do what? It's not all the vestiges in the world.
It's all the ones
No, the ones
listed.
she told us
She
about.
was like, if you get these, then I will help you.
Oh, really? She said that?
Did she say that?
Did she say that?
Did she say that?
I thought she
Do
said...
we remember her saying anything
We
like
didn't
that?
messages until
It was from her boyfriend.
Kalanjoria.
Yeah, that name.
The one that said a name is earned.
Yes.
Do we need to go to him?
Sphinx.
Was there anybody that said they would help us once we got all the vestiges? I feel like they said that once we got all the vestiges, we'd be like extra.
We are extra.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's not. I feel like there's not some sort of Voltron thing, considering there are more vestiges in the world. Right?
You lack imagination.
You like giant robots.
Quick, let's try to fit all of our vestiges together.
Okay, let's do
That is interesting. That is a little interesting and possibly revelatory about at least parts of Vox Machina's thought process throughout all of this. It seems like at least Laura and Travis were thinking there was some set bonus if they collected all the vestiges, at least all of the named vestiges that they had names for. That's interesting. Nothing really complicated to say about it. It just is maybe a little bit revealing about their mindset throughout all this.
We touch all the vestiges.
I just stab at Pike.
Ow.
When they're all touching?
You know, Daniel Grace, I honestly don't know where, because I've also always thought that there were more. I think when Kamal Jaori told them about the list, he might have specified that there were more. I'm not entirely sure, but I have always been under the impression that there are more vestiges other than the ones that they know about. That has always been my impression. What's up, Mr. Multi? How you doing?
You take all the We're on the home stretch, it looks like.
Oh my god.
Man, crazy.
Yeah,
you guys have a week to plan amongst
Wait.
yourselves what to do next time.
Are we assuming that we're sleeping after this? Because goddamn.
We already
Oh,
discussed
that's
it.
right.
That's right.
Yes, you only used your spell there. Well, unfortunately, not have a Travis Born Ashley Johnson.
Oh, fuck.
However, based on the gathering of allies for this battle, we may have a guest or two. Yeah, man! John Carnival's here!
Next week on Critical
Wait, it's happening next week?
What?
We're going into battle?
Well,
we don't have Travis on.
Shit's happening.
That city's probably like the 9 circles of hell. I mean, we're not just gonna get there fast track to Thordak.
Okay.
If you got like next week, I'll go kill you.
I think I know who it is.
Wish. Thank you guys so much for watching tonight. I will see you Tuesday at Talks Machina. And Thursday for the continuation of this climactic downward spiral into Ancient Red Dragon.
Okay. Damn. Big ep. Oh, God. Oh no. Oh no, everything's terrible. Wait, can I put that behind there? Okay. Oh, it still looks bad. Okay, I'll keep it on there. Is the date relevant? American election. Referring to the voting jokes at the end. Okay. Yeah. The named folks at Fort Daxio survived. Xanthus. The only one that could have actually confirmed Brahm was not at the meeting, Gilmore. But I will say, for someone that likes to hang my hat on every conspiracy that I can, I actually think that this is just a lore contradiction. I think this is a rare time where I believe that Brahm, and I swear to God, if I get Raishon here, and this guy's a doppelganger or something, and doppelgangers shape changing isn't actually magical, so the orb didn't affect him, I'm gonna lose my shit. But I think that Brahm is actually on the straight and narrow. I think he's chill. And I'm thinking about him compared to Riskel Daxio. Because Riskel mentioned, L is a Vecna cult, was a Vecna cult member. And Brahm mentioned that Ioun worshippers are hunted. They're persecuted. Those who seek to lessen her hold on the world and the spread of information and knowledge that we have to share are then hunted and persecuted. Those of us who follow in her wake are kept in distributed information. The temples have been buried or kept in distributed information. What? Wait, let me go back to 403. Because what I wrote down doesn't make sense.
Buried or kept in. We distribute information through anonymous channels.
What?
So the temples are been buried or kept in.
Or kept in.
We distribute information through anonymous channels.
Am I not understanding this, or did Brahm just talk weird? I think Brahm might just talk weird.
We distribute information through anonymous channels.
I'll trust the transcripts on this, the captions. Can speak out so strongly. This was one such temple. Interesting. There is then the Chained Oblivion. The Chained Oblivion sounds very Death God, also, I will say. Just like on vibes. The Chained Oblivion sounds very Death God-esque. I was really ready for you to go deep on some theory. With the contradiction on Brahm, I just don't think there's anything there. Like, it's so blatantly contradictory. Like, I'm comparing it mentally to the teleportation circle contradiction. And the teleportation circle contradiction, you can see it as a half-truth, right? Because there is a teleportation circle in the Lyceum. And Whitestone seems like it would have one if you're not paying attention to the fact that it was narrated that it specifically doesn't. These are things you could imply unless you're paying very specific attention. This requires you to pay attention to 2 or 3 pieces of information to understand why it's a contradiction, which makes it seem more purposeful. If you remember the thing that Gilmore said, Brahm just can't be here. Brahm just can't be here if Gilmore was being super serious or meant to be taken very literally. It feels so contradictory that it makes me think it's just a mistake. If it was something that Vox was meant to pick up on, I think Matt would have hidden it better. Matt got sad that the Ziggurat gave such a good Raishon defense, so he went looking for some disguise that would work. That Matt can actually have human flaws, especially after the whole teleportation circle thing. Matt has put me in a hard position of now I do have to discern what is a purposeful contradiction and what is not. Because now we know that Matt will purposefully contradict himself as a tell. So I will say there's a little bit of I do have to decide on whether or not it's a human flaw or if it's a purposeful contradiction. But yeah, no, I don't blame him at all. I will say I loved you going to previous C1 episodes to hear them speak. I've never been more on top of C1 details only due to Critical Eyes. Feels like a switch an idea mid-sentence. Yeah. It's all there's it's very interesting to see how these things can get dropped. Looking at the Braum thing specifically, it's another reason that I record my sessions and I watch them back a lot of times. Sometimes as a DM, you improv something that makes sense at the time. You know, Braum dying in the fall of Amon totally tracks, but it's as a response to a player, and it's very easy for that sort of thing to not get written down, to not get catched. It's so easy for that sort of stuff to not get caught in your notes. And when that sort of thing doesn't get caught, Braum just keeps on living. It's also a good example of how I assume Matt's process works. When he is looking for a source of information or an ally or a contact, he's going back into his Rolodex of NPCs and pulling out people that make sense. He's not tracking all of these people in super fine detail the entire time. People go into an ambiguous liminal space between essentially use cases, and then they get pulled back out when it makes sense. I think Matt checks his notes to make sure there's no contradictions with what he has written down. But if you don't write it down, like Gilmore offhandedly mentioning that Braum is dead, if you don't write it down, it doesn't make it into that later kind of pulling back out. So it's interesting. If you stop making videos some sad day, just promise you'll watch all of Exu. I'm gonna watch Exu. I'm gonna watch it. If for some reason, like tomorrow, Genie snapped its fingers and took away my ability to stream or make videos, nuked my channel, and I'm not allowed to start another one, I would just keep watching Critical Role. At this point, I'm hooked enough. I would watch it very differently, but I would keep watching Critical Role at this point. Yeah. Do you want to know if the Chained Oblivion is a Matt Mercer original or a D&D Forgotten Realms God deity? Yeah, whatever. That sort of stuff of like, is it Matt Mercer original? Is it not? I don't really care one way or the other. I think as a DM, we should always assume that our players don't have that meta knowledge. I'm relying on Matt to convey the things I need to know. If you guys want to convey of like, oh yeah, this is a separate, distinct deity, I'm fine with that. I don't consider it like a spoiler, but I also don't actively want to know. So the working theory is that the Chained Oblivion, Vecna, and the previous God of Death are the same entity. Yes. The working theory is that the Chained Oblivion is Vecna or the previous God of Death that the Raven Queen, not subsumed, what's the word? Toppled. The Chained Oblivion is either Vecna or the previous God of Death. And might be the previous God of Death. I have a separate theory that Vecna is actually the previous God of Death. So, that kind of works into it. I think that both the Chained Oblivion and Vecna have a really good shot at being the previous God of Death. And if both of those are right, then they are each other. You know what I'm saying? There's also the fact that DMs should change lore when taking NPCs from other lore. If you're yoinking NPCs, absolutely change some shit. I think Daniel watched it, and I don't know, maybe other people have. My prepping for Saltmarsh session, I yoinked a troglodyte like mage from Forge of Fury and put them into essentially Greyhawk, but my Saltmarsh setting. I changed them quite a bit. I changed the whole layout of the encounter, and even mid-session I changed it even a bit more. I improv'd some stuff and changed a little bit of the lore to make it like a cult priest rather than just a mage. They were more of a cult priest. So yeah, absolutely. DMs absolutely should change lore. So even if the Chained Oblivion was, that's why I say I don't really care. Because even if the Chained Oblivion is a Forgotten Realms deity, I would broadly assume that Matt can and might have changed it in whatever way he saw fit. So that's basically why I don't particularly care. If you learn that CR took something from older D&D and then modified it, in many cases, the CR info will appear above D&D in the search results. That's fair. There's only one god, and they're doing that old review YouTuber thing of putting on a wig. They're all just playing. It's all the different Markiplier characters. The TikTok thing of just putting the towel on. And there's just one god, and they're having fun with all this. It's like a stage play for them. It's a D&D lore entity, but Matt changes it to fit Exandria. Right. That's what I assume, because I know that Sarenrae is not originally from Forgotten Realms. I think broadly, the D&D fan base, even from earlier editions, especially like 3.5 or 4, is not as tuned in to where D&D lore is. I don't think that most people are tuned in to the fact that the Thrykreen are from Dark Sun. I don't think that they're aware of the deity of Sigil. I can't remember. It's like the Weeping Lady or something. I don't think that they're aware that she's from an interdimensional city. I think that people conflate a lot of things as, you know, like they take some things from like Greyhawk and like assume that they're Forgotten Realms or whatever. So even like saying like, what is D&D lore? There's like 10 different settings that all have very different lore. And also, the Forgotten Realms has stolen a lot of lore from the other settings. Like the Aaron from Mystara got transported into Forgotten Realms. So D&D lore is such a confusing soup as it is that I take all of it with a grain of salt when we're watching it being put in, especially in a homebrew setting that is so about the gods and these divine conflicts. There's so much about Exandria that is defined by the gods and by events that explicitly never happened in any real D&D lore. Yeah. You mean most people haven't memorized several versions of fictional mythology? Lady of Pain. Mystara doesn't even have gods. They have immortals, which are gods but are not gods. It's all, you know. It's there's all sorts of shit, you know, just hanging around. I found out a while ago that some D&D entity was actually an ancient Sumerian god. Yeah, they steal from real world lore. Yeah. Because, I mean, I think like a lot of the Norse pantheon is referenced in early, like AD&D era, 2nd edition era, D&D setting lore. A lot of Norse mythology is referenced, Egyptian. Tiamat was apparently, okay, it is Tiamat. Interesting. So all that is to say, if I know that it's existing lore, that's fine. You can tell me if you think it's relevant, but don't feel the need to go out of your way. Yeah, but interesting. The most interesting there's like 2 other things that stood out to me from that big lore drop. Obviously, Thordak building something crazy. And then secondarily, the what do you call it? Oh, I just had a thought. No, that doesn't make any sense. I was thinking about how Riskel, right? Because I mentioned that Thordak is using the siphon in Whitestone to fuel the construction of the thing in Amon. But that doesn't make sense unless it does. Because if the thing is in Amon, what we know about siphons is that they connect 2 points in space, and they transfer raw magical energies to create things and to do things. That's what we know about siphons. My assumption for a while on, what is the siphon powering? What is the siphon powering? That's a big open sort of question. The only connections that we have to the Whitestone siphon at this point are the Briarwoods. We know that they are Vecna worshippers, and that Delilah used the power of Vecna in some way to resurrect Silas. The implication is that process turned him into a vampire. That's not technically confirmed, but the implication is that he came back wrong. Then we have Riskel Daxio, who called himself the body of Vecna and said that he would rise again. When you all die, I will rise again, for I am his blood. For I am his blood. Yeah. For I am his blood. So I thought for a while, it's like the big open... Oh, yeah, and then from the Briarwoods, we also have that she said, I broke the world for you, or something along those lines. The assumption is that whatever she was doing, whatever they were doing in Whitestone, whatever the siphon was powering was going to break the world. For a while, I had theorized that the siphon was what opened the portal to allow Thordak in, the World Eater. But that doesn't quite mesh with how Raishan has described events. Raishan has not given us any connection to the Vecna cult. And indeed, she seems interested in the Whitestone Ziggurat, but not that familiar. The only connection we have to her outside of, the times that we see her actively on screen, she has a connection to the Clasp, but that seems to be post-Chroma Conclave. It seems to be, at least. She has a connection to Melora, because a Meloran priest, a druid, or archdruid, is the one that cursed her. And she has a connection to the Pyra, and the other Chroma Conclave members, one of whom was Krieg. But no super obvious connection to Vecna or Riskel or the Briarwoods. You would think that there would at least be some sort of implied connection there. And the closest that we have is to Krieg. What did Krieg have in his house again? He had the 4 items, which I have still not put together exactly what they were for. My assumption is that Brimscythe put those items there afterward. Where's Figures of Authority? Maybe People of Power, Entities of Power? Is it Brimscythe in there? Oh, I haven't finished it yet. I gotta finish this. It's not useful until I do. I know that I have a theory about it, so I'll go and check the theories. Chroma Conclave objects. So there were white dominoes, a red tea set. I don't think that they represent Chroma Conclave members anymore. Green jewel-eyed skull, and a bust of Jamon Saord that is black. We now know that Jamon Saord is Devosa, which possibly implies that these are references to other metallic dragons? I don't know. I have absolutely no idea what these could be for or referencing. The green jewel-eyed skull had a Githyanki in it. It claims that an old and powerful Githyanki is housed within. Seem to believe that it could be granting the wish, but discouraged Vox Machina from utilizing said wish. Krieg is so weird. Because all of this was revolving around the siphon, right? Through the corrupting of the Heartstone, that is ultimately what brought back Thordak. She doesn't reference any siphon. She doesn't seem to know anything about siphon. There's nothing there. So then it's like, okay, well, what is the siphon doing? Be nothing? like it could just be something that they haven't yet to discover. It also seems possible that it's related to the altar on the Glint Shore. But I think that we will see the other side. That's the only thing that dissuades me from thinking that it's the Glint Shore. I think it's possible that the spell scroll that was created, I think it was Plane Shift, was used to summon Yank. it's like, okay, maybe the siphon was used to create that spell scroll, but I think that whenever we discover the other end of the siphon, we'll see it. I think it will be relatively clear, which also kind of dissuades me from thinking that it's at the Pyra, that that's what the siphon is feeding. It still seems possible, but not immediately likely. Gate, that's right, Gate. Not immediately likely. I'm reminded of the fact that Riskel was an architect. He was a builder. Now, I don't remember, and I don't even know how I would find this. I would have to guess. Actually, it would be at the feast. It would be at the feast or directly after. It might be in Crimson Diplomacy. But I believe that there is a point. Oh, there's no way I can directly find this. I'm not even going to vocalize it until I potentially find it. I'm not even going to let you assholes know.
Underway.
I don't even want to let you know. Let's see. Alice. Oh, wait. You might be able to guess where I'm going with this. Let's see. Within that week, they made various preparations. Let's see. Upon hearing the Briarwood's arrival within the week to discuss politics, within that week, they made various preparations. They made their way to the central palace. The Briarwoods arrived. The feast was put out. However, Percy went invisible. Formal attire on. Your weapons are at the door. Okay. There's the main foyer that splits off into... Where are we entering into? A large foyer area. Splits off into two similar meeting chambers in the Grand Hall. That's where you guys were feasting. Surrounds the outskirts. There are a few bits and bobs. Not from this part of the palace. You're too far away. Right. That's fine. I don't think it would be in here. Beyond the palace walls. The only other thing I'm going to search during this episode, it's probably during the previous episodes, but I'm going to say construction. Oh, what? What is this? We had everyone who was currently present in the chat room be a part of a random drawing. Oh, that's right. I remember this. Only one match. Other than that, additional damage. Wow, there's actually a lot of additionals. Oh, no. I don't think it's in here. So I'm going to go check the previous episode. And I'm still going to keep you on the edge of your goddamn seat. I'm not telling you guys shit. Episode 24. If I find it, if it's real.
Hello, everyone.
If it's real, that's crazy. I have a big theory about what's going on. That you might be able to guess where I'm going with this. In addition to that, 2 additional rounds. Addition, no additional funds. Addition to that, 4 out of 4 matches. I seem to remember something. We're going through the construction process. What is this? Is this them talking to Briarwoods?
I mean, that's amazing.
How's it going?
So far, so good. We're going through the construction.
Oh, wait, this is Gilmore. Okay. Not suspicious, not suspicious. Construction, agreed upon construction of a bridge. Spearheading the construction of this bridge and making this agreement with Uriel. He's the head of planning and construction, overseeing many expansions of the city. Trusted friend of mine, the Arcanist, right. The bridge construction. I thought that for some reason that Uriel had narrated the fact that there had recently been like a new addition or new construction project in the cloud top or in the palace. You're nearing the palace. It could have been any sort of construction to the palace or the cloud top spearheaded by Riskel. Here's our discussion from you. The Briarwoods enter the palace, side of the carriage, Great Hall of the palace where the feast is going to begin. I could have sworn that someone narrates something about some new addition or new construction to the palace. Are you looking for the person responsible for making Grayskull? No, I know that Riskel was at least partially responsible for Grayskull. That could be the case, and it could be that the thought process that I was essentially going through is the only real connection to the siphon that we have is the Briarwoods and Vecna. The only other connection to Vecna that we have is Riskel. If I could find any construction projects that he had to do with, I might be able to find the other side of the siphon, or at least possible locations for the other side of the siphon. And possibly, if that other side was the palace, now that would be some evidence for the fact that the siphon is feeding the thing that Thordak is constructing. And that's potentially why Thordak settled down in Iman, out of all of the places that he could have settled down in. Also why Brimscythe was initially infiltrating Iman, right? And could be our final connection between the Chroma Conclave and the cultists. This is only existing in my memory. He was fleeing towards Jamon. He was the longtime friend of Uriel, so it's possible that, he did plenty of things that just weren't narrated. In the palace? Yeah. Expansions of the city is probably the closest I'm gonna get. I thought there was something more specific when they were talking about where the Briarwood's bedrooms were, or how the palace was laid out. I thought Uriel mentioned something about a new addition or construction, but I think I'm just wrong. I mean, the expansions of the city is like, that gives a lot of possible areas. Iman in general has been touched by Riskel. It could be anywhere within that. Whispered One is such a cool nickname. I never considered that he could have been a vampire before being brought back by Vecna, or after. I am broadly assuming that the process of bringing him back is what transformed him into a vampire. I don't think there's a huge reason to not assume that, but it is theoretically possible that he could have been a vampire before or after he was resurrected. I don't personally think that is what happened, but yeah. Did you see our transcript search engine online? I know. I wanted to find it though. I can't find anything other than what John just found. I think I'm making it up. I think I'm inventing it, but man, oh man, did I think that was a thing that was narrated. But it's hard to remember from those early days. Either way, I mean, Riskel overseeing some expansions could always be it. Where the fuck is the other side of the siphon? Where is it? It could also be that Thordak is starting his own siphon underneath. I don't know, but I don't think so. That seems not necessarily random, but just unlikely. Didn't find anywhere as well. Putting in expansion edition construction, don't get any hits. Gotcha. Damn. Yeah, I think I'm grasping at straws. We'll see when we get closer. I'm excited for 78, but I've already been streaming for longer than I wanted to. I gotta go and record fantasy. This confirmed a lot of things for me. Also just like broadly confirmed that I should be paying attention to Ioun. For a while, I was like, it seems like there's some things swirling around Ioun, but there's no direct attention really given to her. This episode definitely confirmed for me that I'm on the right track with being concerned and paying attention to Ioun stuff. I think it will be very relevant, but we will have to see exactly how relevant. Yes, fantasy. I'm behind on filming, so I need to finish the episode today, but I don't know how long that'll be. Because I'd like for the gap between 3 and 4 to be much shorter than the gap between 2 and 3. Ideally this Saturday, but if not, the Saturday after. Anyways, I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to head out. Thank you all so much for joining. This has gotten my theory senses tingling for the first time in a little bit. I'm excited to see where they go next. Bye-bye.